Marcus Hale wiped sweat from his brow with the sleeve of his worn navy blue jumpsuit. It was only 9:12 a.m., but already the hallways of the Sterling Heights corporate tower were echoing with polished shoes, urgent heels, and voices that never once acknowledged the man mopping the floor. He didn't mind, not anymore. He had long grown used to being invisible, just the janitor. Just the guy with a mop and an AMA tag, just Marcus. But he wasn't just anything, not at home. At home, he was daddy the whole universe to a curious 7-year-old girl named Amaya, who waited each night with a drawing in one hand and leftover spaghetti in the other. She never saw him as invisible. To her, he was the strongest man alive, the one who kissed her forehead and braided her hair into messy buns that somehow still looked better than her teacher's. But at Sterling Heights Tower, no one knew or cared that Marcus had once been an aspiring engineer, that he'd given up everything when his wife died 5 years ago to raise Amaya alone. Now he scrubbed toilets and vacuumed boardrooms while men in suits made decisions over his head. Literally and figuratively, every day was a routine. Clean. The executive floor, first before the CEO, arrived at 8:30 sharp. Vacuum outside the conference room. Never speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact. Keep your head down. He followed every rule. He knew that in this building, the only time people noticed the janitor was when something went wrong. But today something would go terribly, irrevocably wrong. It was a Friday morning when Marcus overheard the conversation. Not intentionally, he wasn't trying to eavesdrop. But the door to conference room A hadn't closed all the way, and voices spilled into the hallway like spilled coffee. She's driving the twins upstate after lunch. I told her not to, but you know Olivia, said a deep voice. One Marcus. Recognized immediately. CEO Graham Caldwell. The man was practically royalty in the corporate world. A billionaire who had started from nothing, or so the news articles said. Marcus wasn't sure if he believed that anymore. Caldwell wore $1,000 suits and never looked anyone below the VPs in the eye. Storms are coming in. Could get icy, another executive said. I know. I told her to wait till tomorrow, but she's determined, Caldwell replied with a sigh. The kids are excited. They want to see snow. Marcus's heart paused at the mention of kids. He couldn't imagine letting Amaya travel alone. Not with snow coming, not on icy roads. But it wasn't his place. Still, something about the conversation lodged itself in his chest, like a warning unspoken. Later that afternoon, as Marcus stepped out back to take a short break, something rare for him, he saw her. Olivia Caldwell, tall, graceful, in a black coat with fur lining, loading 2 young children into a sleek SUV. The boy looked to be around 6. The girl maybe 4. Something about the way Olivia glanced up at the sky just for a second gave Marcus a bad feeling. She looked distracted, preoccupied, rushed. The kind of look his late wife used to wear on the days before the accident. Marcus hesitated. He wanted to say something. He didn't know what. He just stood there, mop handle leaning against the brick wall, heart pounding for reasons he didn't fully understand. Then the SUV pulled out. Tires crunching, taillights blinking in the falling mist. And Marcus exhaled. Uneasy. An hour later, Marcus was almost done polishing the first floor lobby floors when the alert came through. It started with a scream. A receptionist had seen it on the newsfeed. Car crash on I-95, Olivia Caldwell. And the kids. Marcus froze. He turned to the TV screen hanging in the lobby. Live chopper footage. A crumpled black SUV wrapped around a twisted guardrail. Snow had started falling. Emergency lights spun. Red and white in the gray daylight. He dropped the mop. They were hit by a truck, someone muttered nearby. They're trapped. And before anyone could stop him, Marcus was running, not out of duty, not because anyone told him to, but because something in his bones screamed, go. He didn't think. He grabbed his coat from the locker room, keys from the security desk, and took off in his 1998 Corolla. It coughed to life like it didn't want to cooperate, but Marcus gritted his teeth and floored the gas. The drive took 12 minutes. The last 3 were in pure panic. He arrived just as the paramedics were struggling to pry open the SUV's passenger door. A fire truck had blocked part of the road. The semi-truck that had jackknifed was still being stabilized. Marcus parked in the snowbank, jumped out, and ran past the barricade. "Sir, you can't be here," someone yelled. "I know them." He shouted back, "Let me help. I'm a janitor at Sterling Heights. I know their family." It was a stretch. He didn't know them. But it worked. The back door of the SUV was jammed. Smoke was beginning to rise from the hood. The snow was getting thicker. The paramedics focused on Olivia unconscious, her head against the window. But the kids, they were crying, terrified. The doors wouldn't open. Marcus dropped to his knees, ignoring the ice slicing through his jeans. "Hey, it's okay. I'm gonna get you out," he shouted through the glass. The little boy's tear-streaked face locked onto his. Just like that, Marcus became a man transformed. He used his elbow, then his boot. The glass shattered. The children screamed. He reached in, unbuckled. The girl first. She clung to his neck. He pulled her free, handed her off to a medic. Then the boy, stuck. The seatbelt wouldn't release. Smoke was heavier now. A small flame sparked under the hood. "Get away from the car!" Someone yelled, but Marcus stayed. He yanked, pulled, twisted. The belt snapped. He lifted the boy out, turned, and ran with him cradled in his arms, just as the SUV erupted in flame. The shockwave knocked him off his feet, but he held the boy tight. He didn't let go. When Marcus opened his eyes again, everything hurt. His coat was burned at the edges, his palms scraped raw, and smoke still clung to his skin like a second shirt. A paramedic hovered over him, shining a small light into his pupils. Somewhere in the fog, he heard the sound of children. Crying, alive, breathing, and then a voice tight with disbelief, trembling with fear and fury all at once. "Where's my wife? Where's Olivia?" Marcus turned his head and saw Graham Caldwell running toward the wreckage, pushing past responders, his tie undone, panic making his perfectly composed exterior crumble. "She's alive," a firefighter said, gripping his shoulder. "Unconscious, being airlifted now. And the kids? They're safe." "Thanks to him," the firefighter pointed. Graham turned. For a second, just a heartbeat, he didn't recognize Marcus. Just saw a man burned, shivering, kneeling on the snow-crusted asphalt. Then realization cracked his expression. "You're the janitor," Marcus blinked. The words stung, though there was no malice in them. "Yes," he said quietly, trying to stand but faltering. Caldwell stepped forward instinctively, catching him by the elbow. Their eyes locked. In that moment, titles dissolved. There were no CEOs, no janitors. Just two fathers, one of them forever changed by the other. "You ran into a burning car," Graham said. "For my children." Marcus didn't answer. He looked down, almost ashamed of the attention. But Graham wouldn't let go. He tightened his grip. "You saved them." The story exploded overnight. A passing news chopper had caught part of the rescue. By morning, footage of Marcus dragging the boy from the car had gone viral. "Hero janitor saves CEO's family" ran on every news outlet. Interviews were requested. Phone lines at the corporate tower lit up. But Marcus didn't want any of it. He was at home with Amaya, who hugged him a little too tight and asked why his arms were bandaged and why he smelled like burned rubber. He told her he just helped someone, that's all. No need to make it bigger than it was. But it was bigger. Much bigger. At Sterling Heights Tower the next day, the building was still abuzz when Graham Caldwell walked into the main lobby, not through the private executive elevator, Not with his usual entourage, but alone. Every employee turned to watch as he marched. Straight to the janitor's supply room, he knocked. Marcus opened the door with a startled expression, a mop in one hand. "May I?" Graham asked, gesturing inside. Marcus nodded, confused. The CEO stepped in, surrounded by shelves of cleaning supplies and a faint scent of bleach dot. Then Graham said something that no one, not Marcus, not anyone had expected. "I want to offer you a job." Marcus blinked. I already have a job, sir." "No, I mean a new job, a real opportunity, not charity. Not a headline. I want to hire you personally as my family's personal safety advisor and facility supervisor. You'd oversee security improvements, home safety, and corporate emergency protocol. Full salary, benefits, retirement, full ride for your daughter's education." Silence hung in the air like dust. "Why me?" Marcus finally asked, Grum's voice cracked. "Because when everyone else watched, you ran. You risked your life for my children when you didn't have to. That's the kind of person I want on my team, around my family." Marcus took the job, not because of the salary or the benefits, though those were life-changing, but because, deep down, he knew he could do more. He wanted to do more. He had just never been given the chance. His first day on the new job was surreal. No mop in hand, no sideways glances, no invisible cloak. He walked through this same building, but this time, people looked at him differently. Some smiled, some clapped him on the shoulder. A few even said thank you. He was introduced as Director of Safety and Facilities. It sounded strange. He didn't feel like a director of anything, but then he saw the twins safe, smiling and clinging to his legs like old friends. And he saw Olivia Caldwell, still in recovery, eyes glassy with gratitude, who whispered, "You brought them back to me." Then he saw Amaya, who now proudly told her classmates, "My daddy is a hero." Marcus finally believed it too, but he never let it go to his head. He still cleaned up after himself, still said sir and ma'am, still thanked the cafeteria staff, still remembered what it felt like to be ignored. Because the only thing more powerful than a hero is a humble 2 months into his new role, Marcus Hawley had settled into a rhythm. His days were filled with security walkthroughs, maintenance protocols, and private transport logistics for the Caldwell family. He was meticulous, precise, and still deeply humble, never letting the title change the heart behind the uniform. But something felt off. It began with the little things. A black SUV parked across from the Caldwell residence 3 nights in a row, never staying long, never leaving a license plate visible. A maintenance request for a building exit door that had already been checked and logged as functional. A keycard found on the 14th floor elevator panel 1, not registered to any employee. Marcus didn't want to sound paranoid, but he had learned long ago to trust his instincts. And his instincts were now screaming. One night, while reviewing internal surveillance logs from his home office, Marcus spotted it, barely a flicker, but enough to confirm his suspicion. A tall figure, hoodie up, standing outside the corporate garage entrance at 3:14 a.m., facing the building motionless for nearly 10 minutes before walking away. No entry, no break-in. But the posture, the timing, it wasn't random, he flagged it to corporate security. They brushed it off. Probably a drifter. Maybe an employee's partner waiting for a ride. But Marcus didn't accept maybes not anymore. Especially not when the Caldwell twins now ran to him every morning, calling him Mr. Marcus with toothy smiles and sticky fingers. Especially not when Olivia's voice still shook, ever so slightly whenever she drove more than 5 miles. He dug deeper. Late one Thursday evening, Marcus sat alone in the Sterling Heights server room. He had borrowed access from IT with Graham's approval, under the pretense of reviewing emergency exit strategy. What he really wanted was archived footage, He cross-checked times, pulled access logs, compared employee keycard patterns. Then it clicked. A senior-level IT contractor hired only 6 weeks ago had been scanning badge access at odd hours. He wasn't stealing, wasn't sabotaging, but he had been planting something, a tiny black object smaller than a matchbox, tucked inside the vent of the CEO's private office. A listening device. Marcus took photos, documented everything. He didn't go to security this time. He went straight to Graham. The next morning, Marcus stood in the executive suite, facing the man whose family he'd once carried through fire. "I believe someone inside your company is planning something," Marcus said calmly. "And they're watching you." At first, Graham's face darkened with suspicion. But Marcus laid out the evidence logs, surveillance frames, timestamps, and the device itself. There was no denying it. "I think they're not after you," Marcus added softly. "They're after Olivia or the kids." Silence filled the room. Then Graham said just 2 words. "Do whatever." Marcus launched a private investigation under Caldwell's personal authorization. With help from a retired detective friend, he uncovered what no one at Sterling Heights wanted to admit. The IT contractor wasn't working alone. He was linked to a disgruntled former investor who blamed Caldwell for his bankruptcy, claiming the CEO had destroyed his family. Now the man wanted revenge, not through lawsuits, through fear. They planned to abduct the Caldwell twins during an upcoming charity gala. Posing as staff, Marcus didn't sleep the night he confirmed it. He didn't tell Olivia, yet there was no need to cause more trauma until the threat was neutralized. But he put every safeguard in place: facial scan entry, radio coordination, backup vehicles, trained security embedded into the event. And he stayed by the twins' side the entire night, like a shadow, like a guardian. When the 2 fake waiters tried to slip past the back hallway, Marcus was there. He didn't hesitate. He tackled one man to the ground and disarmed the other with a blow that cracked the marble floor. His elbow was dislocated in the fight, but he didn't let go of the attacker until both men were in cuffs. That night, the twins never even knew what almost happened. But Olivia did. And so did Graham. Marcus never asked for thanks, but this time, he received something else. Respect. Unspoken, unshakable, earned. After the attempted abduction, Marcus Hale's name appeared in headlines again, but this time with an entirely different tone. No longer was he the janitor who became a hero. Now he was being called a protector, a strategist, and even by one bold magazine cover, the man who outwitted corporate crime. But Marcus didn't care about titles. He still dropped Amaya off at school each morning, still ironed his own shirts, still walked the long way home from the grocery store, because she liked feeding the ducks by the pond. But something had changed inside him. People had begun asking for his voice. Local schools invited him to speak. News outlets requested interviews not about the accident, but about character. Leadership panels asked for his insight. A senator even reached out to ask if Marcus would consider consulting on public safety campaigns. Still, he kept saying no. Until one day, Amaya walked into his bedroom holding a flyer from her backpack. Her teacher had asked students to bring someone they admired to Heroes Day. "I want to bring you," she said softly. Marcus smiled. "I'm not really a hero, kiddo. You saved people, Daddy, and you're nice, and you listen. That makes you a hero." He stared at her, the same way she used to stare at him when they were both grieving, when he was cleaning floors in silence to keep them afloat. Maybe it was time to speak. On Heroes Day, Marcus stood in front of a room filled with second graders and parents, most of whom didn't recognize him from the news or TV spots. To them, he was just another dad in a plaid shirt. He cleared his throat, looking nervous. "I used to clean bathrooms for a living," he began. The room went still. "Every day, I scrubbed tiles in buildings where people walked past me like I was part of the furniture. I wasn't bitter. I just accepted that sometimes the world doesn't see the whole story. He looked over at Amaya, who was beaming in the front row. I wasn't supposed to be a hero. I was just doing my job, but the truth is, heroes don't get chosen, they show up. They do something when no one else will. He paused. Every one of us has a moment. Just one, where we can either look away or step forward. I stepped forward. And I'd do it again. The room erupted in applause. Some were crying. Even the principal stood afterward. Several parents came up to thank him, not just for saving a family, but for reminding them what integrity looked like. That night, Marcus sat in his living room, staring at a framed picture of his late wife. "I hope I'm making you proud," he whispered. And for the first time in years, the ache in his chest felt a little lighter. 3 months later, Graham Caldwell made an announcement at the Sterling Heights Company annual summit. The crowd was buzzing, not knowing what to expect. "This company has always honored innovation and leadership," he began. "But today, I want to recognize a different kind of legacy." He motioned for someone to join him on stage. Marcus hesitated at first. Standing just behind the curtain in a clean navy suit. Double quotes, Mr. Marcus Hale has not only saved lives, he's reminded us that strength, character, and integrity often wear plain clothes. He has inspired a scholarship in his name, which will fund full college tuition for children of custodial and maintenance workers across the state. The room stood in ovation as Marcus stepped forward. He didn't say much. Just one line into the mic. "I was never trying to be anything more than a good father. Everything else just followed." From that day on, janitors at Sterling Heights walked taller, not because they hoped to be heroes, but because they already were.